So there was this question that I got asked on one of my previous videos. Something about this question just really connected with me. And it was just the fact that if you're somebody that's been making music for years and still goes at it and still loves it like it was just your first time that you discovered this art of yours. Something about this right here is what I've mentioned to many of my subscribers before. We don't know each other face to face, but just this love and this passion that we have for this art that we do is what connects us and brings us all together. I love being able to read messages or comments like this because, you know, we're all humans, life happens, but you always come back to what brings life to who you are. For me, that is music, that is making beats. Now, to finish off this question was just, hey, I just picked up an MPC, I'm back on it, and I'm ready to start making music the way I did. What is something that you would recommend me pair up with my MPC? Just wanted to share some accessories that you might want to consider if you have a sampler. I'll just say a sampler in general. Some of my favorite accessories. So if I had to start all over again, I have no studio or anything, what is the main pieces that I would pair with my MPC? And also, if there's something that I probably don't know about that you would recommend to us, let us know down in the comments. Some of the gear that I might mention, you'll see some links down in my description if you guys want to pick some up. I always talk about Zounds. Zounds is my favorite place to shop at. Most of the gear that I've purchased here in my studio has been through Zounds. Thankfully, they do set up a payment plan. So this MPC Live right here, I purchased it through Zounds. Just finished paying it off a few months ago, and I've been having fun. They'll ship out your gear to you today if you purchase, and you set up a payment plan with them. They don't check your background. They just set up a payment plan with you and ship it out to you. Now, if I had to start all over again and with no sampler or anything, just had to pick up my first sampler, which MPC would it be for me? I've mentioned this and I've made a video on this before, but my two favorite MPCs is going to be the MPC Live Mark II and the MPC Keys. The MPC Keys is just very convenient because it comes with a keyboard. Yes, you could purchase an external keyboard and hook it up to your MPC, but it's pretty cool to have a keyboard attached to your MPC and just have it all together in one piece. Unfortunately, you do not see me rocking the Keys 37 as much right now because I am in the process of changing out the top desk right here. This is actually an awesome desk that I got from FlexiSpot, but unfortunately is a little too small. So I'm just switching out this top piece for another bigger top piece that I can fit more of my samplers on top of my desk. But it would be the Keys 37 or the MPC Live. These are my two favorite MPCs that I've used. However, if you are familiar with the MPC products, you'll know that all MPCs from the MPC 1 to the Live to the Keys to the XSE, they're all pretty much the same. They all have the same software. They all run the same software. The only difference is going to be the backside of it with your inputs and outputs and maybe some Q links that the MPC SE has that these will not have. Now, speakers. We do have to touch up on speakers because we're going to connect a pair of monitors to our MPC to playback audio. Unless you have the MPC Live Mark II, yes, you have the built-in speaker, which sounds awesome, but is not a speaker that you want to work off of 100% of the times. I just recently picked up these Atom Audio D3V speakers. This is pretty crazy. I kind of was like, you know what? I'm in a small room right here. I don't have a lot of space within my studio, so I'm looking for just some small speakers. So I tried out different pairs of monitors that were around the same size range, which is kind of almost like desktop speakers. Out of the other speakers that I picked up just to see how they were going to sound for the type of music that I made, these Atom Audio speakers blew me out the water. Like, there was no comparison. I was like, you know what? These speakers sound awesome. They're so small, but the bass that it gives you out of a speaker that's so small is awesome. They're a pair of speakers that they're staying right here at my studio, and I'm actually replacing these speakers with the previous speakers that I had, which were the Atom Audio A7Hs, and I also use the Focal 7Bs. Those are great studio monitors, but again, look at the size of my studio. It's just a small bedroom size studio. So so they're a little overkill for what I'm doing, but these small Atom Audio speakers sound perfect for what I'm doing. Great bass response, and I'm also able to get a very good mix out of these speakers. So highly recommend these. Now the crazy part about these speakers is that they cost $299. That is so cheap. I was like, you know what, I'll try these speakers out. I'm not expecting much. They cost $299. Hey, at least they sound decent. I'll rock with them, but they sound way better than I expected. As a matter of fact, I almost think they sound better than my Focals that I was previously using. So I actually checked these out through Zounds. Again, I have links down in the description if you guys want to check out a pair of these. There's so many other speakers you guys can look into. These are not the only ones, but these are a great pair of monitors. Once having the MPC, which is the centerpiece, what do you pair up with it? Because you could go different directions with your MPC. You can pair up some pieces of outboard gear, especially if you have something like the MPC Live Mark II, which is going to give you a total of 6 outputs on the back of your MPC. If you're new to all this and you're like, why do I want outputs, or what are the outputs good for? Don't worry about that. You don't really have to get too caught up on the I/O of your MPC. But if you're someone that knows that down the road you want to utilize those extra outputs that the MPC offers you, you might want to consider an MPC Live or an MPC SE, because they will give you some additional outputs. Now, my favorite pieces to pair up with my MPC, it has to be my number one piece. If I had my MPC right now and I was like, all right, I gotta go pick up my piece to pair up with my MPC, for me, it has to be, without a question, my record player, which I actually have right behind me. This record player is actually the Audio-Technica LP60. This is my MPC's best friend. As a matter of fact, this is any sampler's best friend for someone like me. And I do say someone like me because when it comes down to sampling, the source that I'm sampling, I'm very big with vinyl. My number one go-to is vinyl. Now, you got all different types of people that say, you know what, it doesn't really matter. You can sample off of YouTube or iTunes. That's totally fine as well. But for me, the reason why I enjoy sampling is because I enjoy digging through records. I enjoy the physical copies of vinyl when I'm out shopping at a record store. That to me is part of the process. That to me is part of having fun, especially when you come back home with a handful of records. You don't know if it is going to work or not. Like, just, I don't know, that process to me is why I initially got into sampling music and making beats. So that's always going to live with me. That's always going to be part of me. So my record player with my sampler is my go-to match no matter what I'm doing. Anything else that you'll see right here on top of my desk, these are extras that I'm going to recommend, but my record player is not questionable. I have to have it with my sampler. Now, when it comes down to other pieces of hardware that you can pair up with your MPC to give your MPC maybe a boost in signal, or just to run your MPC through some external effects, these are some of my recommendations that I've been using, which my go-to is my SP404 Mark II. The SP404 Mark II is an awesome combo for any sampler. Why? Because it has so many effects within this unit that you could not just listen to, but perform with these encoder knobs up here and just have fun while you're playing back your beat, being able to trigger some of the effects in real time. For me, it sparks ideas. It sparks inspiration on how I'm going to sequence, how am I going to arrange my beat. There's times where dropping an effect really quick will give me an idea or a direction on how I want to sequence my beat. Now, the 404 is not just an effects box. This thing is a lot more than just effects. This thing is a sequencer, it's a sampler. You could trigger samples right here with the pads. It's an awesome box for the price that is at. Now, when it comes down to sequencing and using this as my sequencer, I mean, I have an MPC right next to me. The MPC is just by far the best sequencer, sampler, everything all in one. So I'd rather do the heavy lifting with my MPC and just use this 404 for my effects. Now, you also have other stuff right here that I actually have had for many years. This is actually really cool. These are some different pieces. This will allow you to trigger effects using some of these arcade feel-like buttons right here. This is very similar to with an SP404. The only difference right here is that this performer from ModBap will just give you a little bit more flexibility if you have different synthesizers, you dealing with CV ports and connectivity. This might be a bit more convenient. Now, when it comes down to outboard gear, this is honestly a never-ending topic because you could go any direction you want. Myself, I'm using this 404 as kind of like my mastering box, so that's where I give it my final touch. The way I'm using the 404 with most of my MPCs is just running the stereo output, so left and right going into the SP404 inputs and then coming out of the SP404 into my interface to record my beat like that. The reason why that's a lot more convenient for me is because I can just drop an effect to the whole entire master bus of my MPC so I can write those effects. Now, the really cool thing about having something like the MPC Live Mark II or the MPC XSE is the fact that you have those additional outputs on the back of your MPC. So let's say you just want to run your sample, not your drums, not your bass or your keyboards or any other track, just your sample track into the SP404 to give it flavor, to give it some different effects. You could do that just using the additional outputs that it has on the back of the MPC. A lot of people disregard those outputs and they forget that the MPC Live Mark II gives you those extra outputs. It's not just that it has bigger pads, but it gives you those extra outputs. Now, if you have something like the MPC One or the MPC Live, you could purchase an interface that is class compliant that will expand your I/O, but that's already having to purchase an additional interface to expand those I/O. So I always just like to have the actual inputs and outputs built into my sampler. Now, this is what makes the MPC so powerful to me. It doesn't matter if you have the MPC One all the way to the MPC Live or the MPC keys, is the fact that you could tap into those extra outputs. If you have a class compliant interface with the MPC One or the MPC keys, you could expand your outputs. Why would you want to expand your outputs? Is because if down the road, or maybe you already own a couple compressors or a couple hardware EQs or different outboard gear that you want to run your tracks through, you're able to do that with these machines. That is really, really good. Now, my setup, you're not going to see a LA2A behind me or a Pultec EQ right behind me. But if you are someone that knows that down the road, you want to invest in outboard gear and start running some of your tracks through those pieces, you can do that with these MPCs without having a computer in front of you. Like, you are that type of person that's like, I want to be standalone 100%, no computer whatsoever, just your MPC, and focus on music without having the monitor right in front of you, the MPC is the way to go. Now, talking about outboard gear, there's just so much. There's just so many different routes you could route your audio through. I know there's different effect boxes that I have not tried out yet. So if you guys know of any, let us know down in the comments of some other effects boxes that maybe we should look into. But yes, the sky is the limit when it comes down to routing with your MPC. Now, for me, the SP404 and my MPC, they're best friends. They always work very well together. So if you're looking into having an external FX box, look into the 404. It offers a lot more than just sound effects. Now let's talk about storage. Storage is very important. It's actually not fun to think about SD cards or the USB sticks or just SSDs. It's honestly not a fun topic, but it's an important topic because file management, especially with any of your MPCs, is very important. The MPC that you might have right now, if it's one of the newer MPCs, it's technically a computer built inside of this box. It's a very powerful computer. You can save files into an external hard drive you plug into your MPC. Now, which hard drive or which SSD card should you pick up? if you have an MPC Live Mark II, in the back of the MPC Live Mark II, you could open it up and insert or install an SSD within your MPC. So that will always stay connected to your MPC. It's not going to go nowhere. As a matter of fact, I have a terabyte that I installed on my MPC Live Mark II as a SSD that I have installed, and that's overkill. There's so much that I can save onto that terabyte. I feel like I will never run out of space with this Live Mark II, but it's not as convenient. I feel like my SD card is the way to go because I can pop this out, put it into my computer. I can drag over files. If I want to drop in new samples, I can do that with this SD card. Now, this sounds kind of funny because it's like, I think, at least for me, I assume that everybody uses an SD card for their MPC to save your projects onto your SD card. But I've talked to a lot of people that are saving their projects directly into their MPCs. I would advise you, if you're new to the MPC, use an SD card or a USB stick. Why? Because you do not want to fill up the internal memory of your MPC. You might start running into some issues. You might start getting some crashes, or it's just some lagginess within your MPC. Highly recommend save all of your beats or any samples you sample into an external SD card. This is the one that I use. I'll leave a link down in the description. This has never failed me. It's worked perfect. I've never had any issues with it. So that's pretty much it. I got my MPC, my record player, and a piece of outboard gear, kind of like the SP404 Mark II with a pair of speakers. Now, I am attaching some third-party accessories to my MPC, but if you're someone that's like, man, I'm barely scratching the surface to afford an MPC, you don't need anything that I just mentioned when it comes down to the record player, the SP404, or any other pieces of outboard gear. You really do not need anything other than your MPC. If you're going to build your studio as time goes on, or another question you should be asking yourself, and this is probably what we should have started off the video with, is how serious are you about what you're investing in? Is this you wasting money on an MPC, or is this you investing on purchasing an MPC for yourself? Because that's going to determine if you should invest and build up your studio around your MPC, whether it's buying some speakers, a piece of outboard gear, a record player. Because if you're just like, you know what, I don't know, I just kind of want to mess around with it, I'm not too sure if it's something that I'm going to follow up with, then do not purchase anything else. Just get your MPC and see if you like it. There's nothing wrong with that. Now, when it comes down to the MPC, it could be a bit mind-boggling. I know a lot of people that just get started with their MPC and they're just like, man, this looks fun. I see other people having fun. They'll see me just sampling all my videos, having a good time. But the learning curve of an MPC might be very daunting. I will tell you right now, the MPC is a full-blown computer inside. There is a lot going on, but there's also a lot of free content on YouTube. Not just my channel. I highly advise, there's so many other different channels out there that show great content on the MPC. That's something that, at least for me, when I'm purchasing a different piece of tech that I'm not too familiar with, I always go on YouTube before I purchase it, and I try to see how much resources is available for that piece of product, just so I can kind of learn it. And there's some pieces that I'm like searching, I'm like, man, there's nothing. I don't know how to use this thing. But luckily, the MPC, there's a great community out there on YouTube that will show you some awesome techniques with your MPC. I do have a course that I offer, but again, if you're somebody on a budget, forget my course. I will direct you to free videos on YouTube. There's awesome content. Trust me, you could learn the MPC for free, you watching just YouTube videos. But if time is not on your side and you're just like, man, I don't want to waste time, there is resources like my course that I have that will take you from start to finish. More information on that, I'll leave links down in the description. Now, I'm sure I've missed out on different pieces of gear, but if you're somebody that rocks your MPC, let us know down in the comments, what MPC do you have? And also, what pieces of outboard gear do you recommend us check out? Because I'll tell you right now, myself, these are the only two pieces of outboard gear that I've used with my MPC when it comes down to effects. So I've not used anything else other than the SP404 and this Modbat Performer. I know there's so much other stuff. Let me know, what do you guys recommend? I might check out something else, run it right here through the channel, and just have a good time with you guys. But look, at the end of the day, it's all about having a good time. Before you make any investment, go with whatever inspires you the most. Yes, this is me talking about an MPC, the different types of MPCs, but realistically, does the MPC inspire you? That's the question you should ask yourself. The MPCs are these newer MPCs with the LCD screens on them. They're pretty cool. They're very powerful, but does it inspire you to make music? That's something that was hard for me at first when I picked up the MPC One, coming from an MPC 2000 XL. I was not inspired, or when I purchased it, I wasn't like, whoa, I'm so excited. I just purchased it because it was during COVID and I was bored. And I was like, man, I'll check it out, I guess. But it wasn't inspirational to me until I dove deep into it and I just kind of figured it out. I realized how powerful it was. I fell in love with it. But it was not something that I felt inspired to make music with. Same thing with any other piece of outboard gear. The SP404, Modbat Performer, they got different effects boxes. Now, do they look inspirational to you to just pick up and start using, or does it look like homework and it's like, man, I want to pick that thing up and connect it? That's something that's very big for me. I like to feel inspired with whatever it is that I invest on. My record player, 100%. When I look at my record player, right away, I just want to go out and buy records and just come back home and start creating. It gives me that drive or that awakening. There's other pieces of outboard gear that I'll purchase and I'm just like, man, I just don't want to use it. It just doesn't push me to want to use it. So this other thing you're considering that's a lot cheaper, but it inspires you to make music, go for it. Get into that, because at the end of the day, the best music that comes out is just the most creative music that you're able to execute on. And sometimes pieces of gear will inspire you to make certain types of music. All right, enough of that. Just wanted to hang out with you and talk samplers, MPC, just pieces of gear that you could connect with your MPC. Thank you guys so much for being a part of this channel and for just dropping the questions down in the comments. It really does help me out when it comes down to structuring these videos. So thank you guys so much. I'll catch y'all on our next one. Peace.